I didn't know that I didn't have to listen to them. Well, maybe we just needed a sign across our chest that said we're being abused. Will anybody help us? I wanted someone to know. I wanted someone to find out. I wanted somebody to ask. But that was my greatest fear.
This is Change Happened, Then What? Where change becomes the story. There are some stories that divide a life into two versions. The one before somebody finally speaks, and the one after. Morgan spent years carrying a childhood filled with silence, fear, and survival. But survival is complicated, especially when you're still trying to understand what's happening to you while it's happening. This season, we're slowing down, sitting inside the stories a little longer, not just asking what happened, but what it meant to live through it. Welcome to part 1 of Morgan's story. Before we continue into Morgan's story, I want to let you know this episode contains discussion of childhood sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, trauma, and violence. Please take care while listening. You may also notice moments where Morgan's voice sounds strained or softer at times. Because of the abuse she endured over many years, her vocal cords and esophagus suffered lasting damage, and in many ways, her body still carries the story today.
So when I was 8 years old, we lived in a very small community, and there was such an influx of new residents that the high school couldn't hold all the students. And so they made a split day, and my mom didn't care for that. And so she took us all out of the public school system and put us into the private Catholic school in our hometown. And I was starting the 3rd grade. For 3 days, I couldn't figure out which bus to ride home. I ended up walking from the bus barn one time, and finally the bus driver was like, "I think you need this bus." I got on the bus the next day and was hoping that this was the right one, and I asked somebody. He said, "Yeah, that's where I live. I live right on Carpenter, just past the tracks." And I said, "Great." Sat down and I started talking to her, and we struck up a conversation. And then when she got off the bus, I waved goodbye to her. And then the next day at school, she's like, "Hey, if you have a bike, ride your bike over. We can play outside." And I'm like, I met a new friend, and we struck up a friendship. And then I started playing over at her house. And as the season started to change and it started to get cooler, she said, "I need to go find some more clothes." And I'm like, "Okay." So she goes into her bedroom, and she's gone for way too long. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So I go in there, and her dad is in there kneeling at her bedside.
At 8 years old, Morgan's understanding of safety was fractured. And like many children living through trauma, her body learned fear long before her mind understood what was happening.
And at first, my first reaction was he was just making the bed, because I didn't even see her. And then I heard her whimper, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he jumped up and spun around and had a hold of me before I even could say a prayer. And he grabbed me and kind of shoved me up against the wall and started threatening me and saying, "You better keep your mouth shut." He said, "You tell anybody, I'm going to kill you." And I started to cry, and then he gripped my arm so tight I started to scream, and he gripped it harder, and he said, "Shut up or I will fucking kill you right here, right now. Snap your neck." In that same instance, he started to put his hands down my pants. I'm like, whoa. And I started to fight back, and he took a hold of me so hard, and he said, "You breathe one word of this and I will kill you." And he got up and walked out of the room. And then the next day at school, I tried to follow her around and just kept trying to ask her questions, and she was doing everything to be avoiding me, acting like she had no clue what I was talking about. I'm like, well, I'm not going back over there again, because that was crazy.
Those are words Morgan wishes today she had been able to hold on to. But children survive by adapting, by trying to make impossible situations feel manageable enough to live through. And eventually, Morgan found herself returning to the house again.
Once the weather really started to turn and it was harvesting time and all the corn was being pulled off the fields, because that was his occupation, a farmer, he was not home hardly at all. And I agreed to play inside again. And I enjoyed it because she had a lot of siblings. Her mother was always home. So I started playing over there again, and he wasn't there, and things were good. And then she talked me into spending the night. Things were fine. And then a couple of times later, I spent the night again, and I woke up to him in my bedside, holding me down, holding his hand over my mouth, already whispering threats. He was so violent with me that, I just peed right there in the bed. And I'm like, what? I didn't do anything. I couldn't understand his anger, his violence. I couldn't understand his threats. Again, I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting involved with that. I will not be going back over there.
What Morgan is describing is something experts now identify as grooming, a gradual process where trust, fear, affection, confusion, attention, secrecy, and power all become entangled together, especially for children, because children are taught to trust adults, to obey them, believe them, and over time, survival can begin to look like compliance.
Each time I ended up back over there, it continued to escalate as to what he was doing, what he was threatening, what he was telling me, and his physical harm. He started picking me up by my wrist and popping my shoulders out of joint. He put his boot in the small of my back and just kicked me down the steps. And when he came down, he picked me up by the hair and he said, if you ever fucking tell, I will kill you right on the spot. The next phase that he went to was I had to touch him. And then he was fondling me. I had to graduate to him forcing his privates into my mouth. And that did not go well, as you could imagine, because one, I fought like crazy and took many beatings for fighting. He kept trying. I would get the belt if I didn't comply. But then the first time that I tried to stop fighting, I threw up everywhere. He left the room and got a towel, and when he came back in, he threw it on the floor. And I went to reach for it, and he kicked me so hard, I'm pretty sure it broke my rib. I couldn't breathe, and I'm just begging him to help me. He's like, it'll be all right. And he walked out, and I couldn't even get up off the floor. And then once he started forcing oral sex with me, he had me just absolutely in a state of chaos.
The abuse continued escalating, slowly, quietly, the way trauma often does inside families in homes where fear controls everything.
All the while at school, my grades are dropping like rocks. My attendance is going down. My behavior's very quickly becoming out of control. And I'm at this new school, and I haven't even been there a full year, and my academics went from A's and B's to failing. And them saying, I don't think she should advance to 4th grade. In my little child's mind, I can't tell. People can't discover it, but I'm going to make them look to see if they notice anything. See if any of my flags are going to get noticed. And unfortunately, they didn't. Not at school, not at home.
Morgan was still in elementary school, still learning multiplication tables, still learning who adults were supposed to be. And like many children living through chronic trauma, her nervous system adapted long before her mind could make sense of what was happening. This was also the very early 80s. Conversations children commonly have today about abuse, boundaries, grooming, or safe adults largely weren't happening yet, especially not in small communities where silence carried its own kind of power.
We were at a dance, and one of the boys called me a whore, and that's how he referred to me. He never used my name. He referred to me as whore. Whore, get over here. This boy at school called me that, and I completely, went loco. Just lost my mind, because I'm thinking, how does this son of a bitch know that I'm a whore? I took it as he knew my secret, and I just broke down, and the teacher's like, what's wrong, come with me. And she took me into another room, and then she's like, now tell me, and all I could think of to say was I was molested, and she stopped the conversation, shut it down, never did a thing.
Never said anything again.
Nope, that's mandatory reporting right there, and she didn't do it.
There are certain adults legally required to report suspected child abuse: teachers, doctors, nurses, therapists, school counselors, people trusted to help protect children when children cannot protect themselves. Morgan says she disclosed abuse to her teacher, and according to her account, nothing happened. The next part of Morgan's story may be difficult for some listeners. Please feel free to skip ahead a minute and a half.
The future was eventually he was going to be engaging in full intercourse and rape me. He started coming into my room and taking me back to his bedroom. And
wasn't his wife in there?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That makes my stomach turn to this day. So he would take me, and he would get in bed and pull me in, so I'm on the very edge, and he moves over to the wife and gets on top of her, and that was his way of teaching me the progression, I assume, and it was horrific. 12 years old is when he started raping me, and I fought him so bad that he started tying my hands to the bed. And then I would still fight. Well, I got to teach you another lesson, because that was all he was about, was teaching you a lesson. And he took me into the basement and tied me to some wooden structure that was on the wall, and my hands were over my head. And before he left, he kicked my feet out from underneath me, so I couldn't even get my feet underneath me, except for just barely the heels. I could get my heels down enough to maybe take some of the weight off my arms. And he went upstairs, shut the light off, and said goodnight.
Morgan told me the fear inside the house extended beyond her. She believes others in the home were also living under threats, control, and violence. And for years, silence became the family language.
And once he understood that I was silenced, it was like he just had a field day with me. Often at night when he had escalated to raping me, the train would be going by. I don't know if he did that intentionally, but it took me years to get over not diving to the ground when that thing came by.
Trauma lives in the body that way sometimes, through sounds, smells, weather, ordinary moments. a nervous system remembering what the mind desperately tries to leave behind.
He took me over to where, on the family property where they had all the farm equipment, and he took me into one of the buildings and threw me down and raped me. And when he was done, he said,
"See, you belong to me. You will always be mine."
We'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by Pure Energy Apothecary. Sometimes survival lives in the body long after difficult seasons of life are over, and caring for ourselves in small intentional ways matters. Pure Energy Apothecary creates handcrafted wellness products designed to support rest, induce calm, and for nervous system care. But one of my favorites is their magnesium butter. It's a rich, soothing blend designed to help ease tension, support relaxation, and create a moment of calm at the end of every day. You can learn more at pureenergyvt.com and receive 20% off with code PURECHANGE. Get gentle support for the season your body's carrying today. pureenergyvt.com.
I mean, it's like every year that went by, I became more aware and more intelligent of what the hell was going on, to the point where I knew my friendship was about her getting a night off. My sister informed me of a teacher that she thought was really nice, and I had her for math, and I decided to get up the courage to leave her an anonymous note. But at first it was too hard for her to understand where it came from, so I wrote a second one, and I underlined the fourth period class 3 times, and I did that on my homework in the same pen, trying to encourage her to figure out which student left her this SOS note under her door. And then she wrote me back, and then I met with her after school one day, and she got enough information from me that I was in a little bit of trouble at home, and I was also in trouble outside of the home in a sexual manner, but I gave her 0 information. And then she, in turn, asked the school counselor to speak to me about it, and then I began a one-on-one counseling session with that counselor at the high school, and I just barely gave him enough information to know something happened. But I knew enough not to reveal anything because I was still in the situation, and they would automatically report it. And so I just kind of talked about my home life, which was tumultuous, and my mother was drinking excessively, so she was really unaware of what was going on. And I do like people to understand that I had a very good relationship with her once I disclosed what happened. And she revealed her trauma that she did not heal, and so she was dealing with it by drinking. And I talked about that with the school counselor quite a bit. I really never talked about what happened in the other home or what was going on. When I was in 10th grade, I got really, really depressed and suicidal to the point where they intervened, called my parents, requested that she put me in outside therapy, which she did, and I sat in there for 1.5 years, revealing very little. But she was a very skilled therapist and very quickly understood that I had been sexually abused, most likely raped, and probably physical abuse as well.
1 month before her 16th birthday, Morgan made a decision she would hold on to. She would never step foot in that house again.
Just shy of my 16th birthday, she brought an apple pie over to my house. She brought it over with her mom as like a gesture, peace offering, please come back, because I had stopped going over there probably a month prior to my 16th birthday, and she was trying to bring me back in. and now at different high schools. And I'm also at a school that was paying attention, which was awesome, but scary at the same time, because I had been so conditioned that no one can find out what was going on in this house. And then the high school was just like, what happened to your eye? Why are you walking funny? What happened to your cheek? Why are you so quiet? It's like they were all over me. It was terrifying, but exactly what I needed. But by then so much had happened and taken place that was horrific that you weren't getting that out of me. There was no way I was going to disclose any of it.
For many survivors of prolonged childhood trauma, disclosure happens slowly, sometimes over years, sometimes decades. Not because they're lying, but because survival taught them silence first.
But we sat there for a year and a half and didn't really say a whole lot. And when I turned 18, it was a Pandora's box. Everything just came flooding out as much as I could tell her, because talking about it was just paramount to torture.
And then Morgan turned 18.
I was, oddly enough, at home from work one day, and I was watching an Oprah show, and it was about sexual abuse, and I was rather turned off by that. I did not want that in my face, but I think I was too lazy to get up and get the remote, and so I just kept eating my cereal while I was watching it. But she mentioned that if you are somebody that is aware of abuse occurring and you do not report it, you are as guilty as the perpetrators themselves. And I realized that I knew that was still happening inside the household, and I had just ignored it and turned a blind eye once I got out of the situation, just in an effort to survive. But then when I realized that, I just was so overcome, I broke down and just absolutely sobbed. And the next therapist appointment I had, I said, I have to do something. I have to try to get these girls help. And so I made that call to CPS, and it ended up being an utter debacle.
For Morgan, something shifted, or maybe something finally broke open. According to Morgan, everyone was interviewed together, the allegations were denied, and the investigation ended.
Case closed.
Morgan finally told the truth. After years of silence, fear, survival, she spoke. And the system meant to protect children sat everyone in the same room together. The family denied everything. The investigation ended. Case closed. If Morgan's story is resonating with you so far, following the show is one of the simplest ways you can help stories like this continue reaching people who may need them. And if someone in your life comes to mind while listening, share this episode with them. Sometimes the right story reaches someone at exactly the right moment. For Morgan, nothing was closed, because somewhere down Carpenter Road, the people she left behind were still living inside that house. And next week, Morgan decides she's no longer willing to stay silent. I'm Heather Holt, and this has been part 1 of Morgan's story. Before you go, you'll find resources related to today's story, along with links to connect with our guest in the show notes. And now it's time for this week's What Changed Me challenge. Every story we share on this podcast has the power to leave us thinking about something a little differently. So, this week, I want to know, what changed you from today's story? Was it something that was said, a moment that stayed with you, or a realization you hadn't considered before? Head over to changehappenedpodcast.com and click on the What Changed Me Community Challenge button and share what changed you from today's episode. Each month, one listener will be selected to receive official Change Happened, Then What gear. I'd love to hear your thoughts and may even share some listener responses in a future episode. Today's episode was written, edited, and produced by me, Heather Holt, at Holt Hill Studios, with some minor supervision and more than a few interruptions from Waylon and Dalton. Thank you for spending time with us. Until next week, I hope you keep finding your way too.
Without the brave.